The courtroom fell silent. The gavel slammed down. $500 for contempt of court, Judge Hargrove growled, pointing not at a person, but at the small silver cross hanging on a young woman's collar. She didn't flinch. She stood, and what she said next would ignite a firestorm across the nation. Earlier that day, Caroline Leavitt, 27 years old, the youngest White House press secretary in American history, was pouring coffee in her modest D.C. apartment. A navy blazer, white shirt, and a cross, a quiet emblem of her New Hampshire roots, sat on her collar like it always did. Then the phone rang. "Caroline," said President Trump, "there's a case going on. A group of Christians were banned from praying in public. D.C. local court. I want you there. Watch it closely." She didn't hesitate. She grabbed her folder, turned off NPR in the SUV, and headed straight into what she thought was just another assignment. She had no idea. She wouldn't just observe history. She'd become it. The courthouse buzzed like a hive of static and routine. Misdemeanors, tenant disputes, parking fines. Caroline entered quietly, took a seat mid-row. She noticed the decor. Worn wooden floors, humming fluorescent lights, a faint smell of mildew and old paper. A man 2 seats over wore a t-shirt, "I am king." A woman's necklace reflected enough light to signal satellites, but no one said a word. Caroline opened her phone, took notes until the door opened and everything changed. Judge Charles Hargrove entered with precision and cold authority. Wire-rimmed glasses, ironed robe, stone face. He moved quickly through early cases, a $50 parking fine, a late rent warning. All routine. Then he saw her, paused, narrowed his eyes. "That cross," he said like the word itself was poison. "This is a courtroom, not a church. Remove it." Gasps fluttered. Caroline stood calmly. "Sir, I'm here on official duty. I'm observing today. This cross is personal, protected by the First Amendment." The judge slammed the gavel. "You think your position lets you parade your faith here?" He leaned forward. "Step to the bench." Caroline stepped forward slowly. Her heels echoed on the wooden floor. Around her, murmurs rippled. Eyes followed. Phones clicked discreetly. "You're in contempt," Hargrove snapped. "I'm issuing a $500 fine." "On what basis?" she asked, eyes sharp. "You're disrupting order," he spat. "But you said nothing to the man in the political shirt or the woman with a chandelier around her neck," she answered. "Why me?" The judge's face reddened. "Because yours is religious," he finally said. Caroline didn't argue. She reached calmly into her bag, pulled out her White House identification and placed it on the podium. "I'm not only a public servant," she said. "I studied law to serve this country." She quoted a Supreme Court case. Lukumi Babalu I versus Hialia, 1993. "The government cannot target religious expression without a compelling reason." "You don't like my cross," she continued, "but that's not law. That's personal bias, and it ends today." The room froze. Even the clerk stopped typing. The bailiff, James Wilson, a 15-year court veteran, folded his arms and nodded silently. Caroline turned on her phone's recorder. Within minutes, the clip leaked. Within hours, Dahmer crossing court trended on X. Within days, America was watching. Trump tweeted, "Caroline Leavitt is a warrior for freedom. That judge should resign." The Judicial Council opened an investigation. Dozens came forward. "I was fined for a cross. My daughter was scolded for a hijab." Real people, real stories. Even Hargrove's own clerk, Mrs. Thompson, came forward. "I've seen it for years," she said. "He always targets faith." Hargrove was suspended. The courthouse added new guidelines. No penalties for religious symbols unless they cause actual disruption. Training became mandatory. New transparency rules were implemented. Other states followed: Florida, Texas, Ohio. Conservative leaders tweeted support. Law students cited Caroline's stand in class. One letter read, "Miss Leavitt, I was afraid to speak. But you weren't. I've started a legal aid group for religious discrimination victims." Weeks later, Caroline stood at the White House podium. The cross still gleamed. "This was never about me," she told reporters. "It's about everyone who's ever been silenced for what they believe. We didn't just defend faith, we defended freedom." That same week, Hargrove, no longer a judge, stood quietly at the back of a courtroom training seminar. "I was wrong," he said. "She reminded me that justice isn't about power, it's about humility. One moment, one fine, one voice that wouldn't stay silent." Caroline framed the $500 fine and hung it in her White House office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Sometimes all it takes is one person with a spine. What would you have done if it were you in that courtroom? Comment below. If you believe freedom of faith is non-negotiable, if you believe one voice can make a difference, subscribe, because Caroline's story was just the beginning.